Still no opening for closing in, Charles.
That's all right.
Going to close in anyway. Charles, what's with this yellow vest?
What yellow vest? What are you talking about?
Okay, I don't know.
You told me a long time. I mean, I don't know. It's a miracle. The art department, churns out this remarkable, poster after poster, intricate color matching and all this kind of stuff. I only wear a blue jacket and dark pants and dark shoes. That's my uniform, right?
So this is an illusion.
Yeah, I mean, have you been not getting enough sleep, or is there something like subliminal going on here, or are you imagining things, or?
Maybe yes.
I don't get it. I mean, and the audience will confirm. I'm not wearing a yellow vest. That stuff hasn't happened in the U.S. yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not time for people in the U.S. to start putting on yellow vests and maybe going to Trump rallies.
Do you think it is?
Could it be? I don't know. Maybe this is a sign from up above. That only you, the seer, the man who can see the truth because you crowdsource the truth, only you can imagine me in a yellow vest. And it's a sign for all of our followers and your subscribers around the world on this planet and many others to maybe go out there, plunk down whatever it costs, get that yellow vest, go to a Trump rally, go to Washington, D.C. If Nancy Pelosi won't have the president in front of this, the State of the Union address, maybe Trump should fire up Air Force One, fire up the ride, and go, place to place to place, and everyone should, put on a red hat and a yellow vest.
You got this at Brooks Brothers, right?
I still don't know what you're talking about. The jacket maybe, but the vest, I can't see. Only you can see this.
Okay, that's fine. I appreciate that.
It's really something.
Well, Charles, so this week's poster, of course, A Fraud Called Clinton. This movie is actually maybe a little obscure at this point, but I enjoyed it quite a bit, A Fish Called Wanda. This was almost like a kind of an offshoot of a Monty Python film.
Yeah, I mean, anything involving John Cleese and the rest of those people is definitely going to be madcap and interesting. And too many, I think, of the current generations, some of them were not born back then.
Yeah.
Just don't have a taste yet for the slapstick comedy and the double entendre coming out of John Cleese at all. But the art department once again has outdone itself. I mean, clearly there's an obvious problem with this poster, which is that the Hillary Clinton head has never rested on a body as nice looking as the bottom portion of that figure. But
yeah, well, Jamie Lee Curtis, of course. Yeah, I bet you there's a lot of people who probably aren't aware of and haven't seen A Fish Called Wanda, but it is an extremely funny film, and sometimes the heads just fit on there perfectly.
Yeah, it's really something.
This is one of those times. We got Comey sitting there sort of, duh.
Dopey James Comey.
He really is. He really is. It just seems like everything we hear is
not good.
Not good, exactly.
And so, sorry, we've had several people contact us out of the blue saying, they really like this coffee table book idea.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I think as you keep churning out poster after poster, I don't know how many pages an ideal coffee table book would be.
134?
No, because that would be just the posters. I think you have to do writing about each poster, and sort of to make it interesting, we'd have to do the inside scoop and the significance and all that kind of. I would have to write probably. You'd have to edit.
I don't mind. And we don't need to use all of them. I mean, there's sure. The high points and everything. But yeah, I'm eager to do that. I would love to have a coffee table book.
Yeah. So all continued suggestions from subscribers and viewers out there are heartily welcome. Of course, it takes
heartily or hardly.
Heartily. We're the ones with hearts. Right. The other guys are the people without hearts.
Right, and of course, Charles, people who want to get in direct contact with you and share their input about coffee table books and other subjects can do it on Twitter. You're holding strong at 34.4, which, frankly, it's suppression. That's ridiculous. You should be well over 100,000 by now, I would think. But of course, people can follow you at Charles Ortel on Twitter. I've been knocked back down. They won't let me above 24.6.
Wow.
For whatever reason, it gets to 24.6 and they kick it back. So if people want to go to Twitter and look up at CS the Truth. You know, one of the best ways people can help the show to grow, Charles, either by becoming sponsors at patreon.com/crowdsource the truth, or sending a one-time sponsorship to paypal.me/crowdsource the truth. You can share the shows with friends and relatives and other people who maybe aren't watching, who you think would find it interesting, or conversely, people who you think are insane and need some of this information to come back down to earth. It's amazing how many people you encounter who think they're well informed because they watch CNN and Fox News.
Right. That's
so
right.
they've got all the information that's available in the world.
Well, it would be fun. You know, one campaign that would be amusing would be to have our Crowdsource the Truth loyalists, and there are many of you, and thank you for that, tweet out. Maybe we can set up a program where we pick the entire roster of annoying, and it's most of them, CNN, MSNBC, NBC, Washington Post, New York Times, et cetera, columnists, and then have a regular stream of, you know, here is, for your continuing education, here's episode 1, here's episode 2, here's episode 3, here's episode 4, and just set it up to happen every 5 minutes.
Wow.
You know, it would be a project for people who know how to use computers better than I believe you can do that. You can
time tweets.
You can, yeah, you can. No, I'm sure you can do that. You can actually schedule tweets to go out, and there ought to be a pretty simple approach where you can take, you know, the list, and somebody who's smarter at it than I am can then pluck from the list maybe randomly and say, hey, just to pick on one idiot who's I think irredeemable, Jake Tapper. Hey, Jake or fake Yapper. You know, you obviously should spend more time watching Crowdsource the Truth and Sunday with Charles and Closing In than you do pretending to interview people when you're not even going to ask them serious questions in any event. You know, maybe that's, you know, what should happen to these reprobate members of the mainstream press. They should be forced at some point soon. You know, administration, sadly, possibly even the Trump administration is still allowing journalists to be tapped and people to be investigated, but certainly under the Obama administration, journalists were spied upon. Maybe the penalties for people who have done that once the crimes are adjudicated and people are convicted is they're going to have to go into solitary confinement and watch Sunday with Charles over and over and over again in English, or alternatively translated into Russian.
That New York Times journalist was getting tapped. What's her name? Who was having sex with...
Oh, yeah. The New York Times journalist.
Getting tapped.
Right.
But Charles, maybe we should just dive right into the slides today. There's a lot going on between the confirmation hearings of William Barr, the new information coming from Judicial Watch, now planning to have Hillary and friends testify under oath.
Right, Rocky Bullwinkle and Hillary and friends, but
yeah. Hillary Clinton testifying under oath, it's like, it's just more perjury, right? It's waiting for...
Well, what I think should shake the mothballs out of the heads of some of these people in the mainstream and in the American electorate is you contrast the Hillary Clinton approach, and you see the correspondence when she is testimony or evidence is requested of Hillary Clinton.
She just gets mad.
She gets her lawyer Kendall to write an absurd letter, you know, saying, I'm not even going to dignify your questions with a response. That said, I have the following 725 general objections and 2,650 specific objections, and for this reason I'm not going to, for that reason I'm not. But actually the answer to my question is, fuck you. That's basically their approach.
That's legal terminology, Charles. We got to keep it down on a level that people can understand.
Whereas with Paul Manafort, it's like, you don't get a letter. 20 people show up in your apartment or at your house at 4:30 in the morning and, you know, rip your place apart and steal whatever they want and, you know, scare your family. And then, you know, when you don't cooperate, they throw you into solitary confinement. And, I mean, the contrast between those two approaches should scare even the most diehard, scruffy, supposed progressive or liberal out there. Because, you know, if you allow this precedent to stand, what you're in essence saying is the law is, in fact, from Dickens, the law is a ass, it doesn't matter. It's a direct quote from one of the Dickens books. You know, it just simply doesn't matter. It's
the law is a ass.
That's in one of the Dickens books. I forget which one.
That's an amazing quote.
It's either in David Copperfield or Oliver Twist. I forget which one of the two. But people in the Crowdsource can check me on that one. But we can't let the standard stand that the law is as, and that the people who now, I guess, believe they're even above the president, the same people who tuned up the FBI to launch not a criminal investigation against Donald Trump, which would have more formal constraints, but a counterintelligence investigation against Trump, which could just go on and on and on, and put the people, the investigators, in a position where arguably they stand atop the sitting president of the United States, thereby, I think, engaging in an extra-constitutional process. They're not 4 branches of Congress or just one, the national security agencies, and we all pretend that we have a constitution in the government. There's 3 branches of government.
You got the executive branch, the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and CNN. Which is part of the
CNN,
FBI.
I don't know.
But it does seem that if they can get people to, dislike Donald Trump or Paul Manafort or Dr. Corsi, they create this situation where sort of anything goes, and there is no real public outcry. Nobody objects because Donald Trump has been so villainized in so many of these, mainstream news venues. So do people really? And by people, I include myself, do we really understand what the difference is between a criminal investigation and a counterintelligence investigation? And how can they, they're investigating the guy and they're the FBI. Isn't he still protected by the same Bill of Rights and all the stuff that would prevent the cops from kicking in your door and taking all your stuff?
Well, I think in part the answer to your question goes back to, I would argue, work we've done together on that State Department informant who sent a letter to Dopey James Comey around January 10th or 11th or so, 2016, saying, hey, Dopey, I've got a lot of evidence here that Hillary Clinton has been breaking the law.
We threw that out.
And here it is, and I want to sit down with you and discuss this in a skiff in one of those sensitive places where only people with the highest level security clearances can go, and I want to take you through the drill, and I want to explain to you that what was going on here is that the President of the United States, Barack Obama, and others had decided that everyone in government works for him, Constitution be damned. And he would interpret the Constitution. The Justice Department under Obama would decide who to prosecute, who not to prosecute. The IRS, the same thing for tax matters. And people needed to understand under Barack Obama that everybody worked for him. And the Constitution was this ancient thing that this bunch of old white guys drafted in the dead of night. Probably their wives really did it because the men were too busy drinking and smoking weed. Back in, I'm just making that up. And
James Comey's here playing "Pull My Finger."
Exactly. And so we do know that, according to the FBI vault file, we've been over it several times, that letter went in January, and that in frustration, the letter writer, we don't know his name yet, we know it's a man, just showed up unannounced late in January 2016 and said, hey, guys, I sent a letter to Dopey James, got no response. I'm here to talk about it. Produce somebody with a security clearance. We can talk about this. And, so it's well known by then, certainly by January 2016, that there were massive problems inside the Obama administration because those around Barack Obama, and arguably Obama himself, had decided that we're going into extra-constitutional territory, that the president was elected to implement the will of the people as perceived through his eyes and the eyes of his advisors. Everyone else get out of the way. And as Obama famously said, right now we're in a government shutdown, but as he famously said in his first meetings with Republicans, either as he became president or after he became president, I won, you lost, get over it. That was his approach, right? And we're supposed to, that's okay for Barack Obama because he's, the magic incoming president from unregulated elitist globalism. He can say that, but Donald Trump, gets disinvited from a State of the Union event. Donald Trump, anything he wants to do he's pilloried in the press. 90% negative coverage in the press in the last year. Nonetheless, his ratings are stable to improving. The contrast here is what gets me really upset. And involved with you doing these videos, trying to motivate people to stand up and say, look, we deserve, I'll check the math actually, we don't spend $6 trillion a year on government. We spend $7 trillion a year on government. $7 trillion. For $7 trillion, we deserve at minimum a T-shirt, maybe a yellow vest.
Yes.
I'll try to find one someday. And but at maximum, we deserve a government that, let's say, has a border wall on the southern border, where we have now people streaming across the southern border from all kinds of countries, all kinds of criminal elements, not simply from maybe Mexico or Honduras or Nicaragua, but from maybe China or the Middle East, or China, as Trump likes to say. We deserve a lot more than we're getting, and we shouldn't just meekly stand by as these idiots and near tyrants say, you know what, the people be damned, the votes don't matter, we decide, we're the media elite, we're the academic elite, we're the intelligentsia, we decide what you should believe, we decide what you should think, we decide who's winning and who's losing, because that's who we are. We're a small clique, that wants all of your shit. And, that's just, I didn't sign up for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's this whole democratic socialist movement, it's a really interesting thing because, they want open borders, they want free health care for everyone. The analogy that comes to my mind is, even if you did want to help, let's say, every homeless person that you see on the street in New York City, if you did that by opening the door to your house, right? Let's say I had a homeless person. I did at one point have a homeless person sleeping on this couch. So you have one, and maybe you could accommodate 2 or 3. And it starts to get a little crowded, the bathroom, hey, who didn't take out the trash? But 5, 10, at what point? And they'd all be taking my resources in terms of food and when does it break?
But you see, I think a better analogy is this. You have normal people, the vast majority of Americans, try to live within their budgets, try to put some money aside for a rainy day, try to think in advance, try to behave responsibly, take responsibility for their errors, try to learn from their mistakes, and are modest. They're not sitting out there and saying, yeah, I'm 29 years old, I used to be a waitress. What I think I want to do is immediately take $35 trillion away from you to blow it on a green agenda. I don't even know what that means. I could make it a yellow agenda, but green is really my favorite color, and everybody knows it's not easy being green. I mean, this kind of insanity coming out from people with...
She wasn't even the manager of the diner.
I don't know how long she lasted. There were issues over how they allocated the tips. She may have stolen tips from her fellow waitresses or waiters, or wait staff, I should say. But anyway, the thing that really rubs me the wrong way, it's not like you can point to the period 1988 to the present, 31 long years, and say, these mandarins in Washington, D.C. and in the various state capitals, what a great job they've done. I mean, it's just the jobs which were growing, Jason, like this from 82 to about 98. The rate of job growth is now like that. It's flat. It used to be like that. It's flat. So there are many fewer people actually working in the private sector today than should be working in the private sector.
They're all hanging out at Starbucks.
Or not even in front of Starbucks, holding the door open and expecting you to give them money for that.
That's a job.
When nobody does that, they just come right up to your table and say, buy me breakfast. Try exercise, it might work for you. Anyway, so it's not like they've done a great job with the domestic economy. And then let's think about the endless war machine. I mean, since 2001, we have been at war. I mean, not minor little skirmishes here. We've been at major league conflicts in Afghanistan, and Iraq, now in Syria and Libya and other places. We're fixing, as Bill Clinton likes to say, we're fixing
Iran.
Well, Iran to pummel Iran and Venezuela and who knows, maybe China and Russia and Ukraine. I mean,
not good.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like the war machine in Washington, D.C. has a lot of, you could look back on this 31-year period and say, look, 31-year record. I mean, fantastic coaching record. We won 85% of our games. No, you're a bunch of freaking losers. And the problem is not, that Washington doesn't have enough power. Washington, D.C. has too much power. The politicians have too much power. And what we're seeing in the private sector is a disruption of the General Electrics and the General Motors and the Sears Holdings and the big companies that get big, dumb, fat, and happy and stop serving the needs, the essential needs of their customers, and they go bankrupt. But in government, because government is set up so that it can never lose, there seems to be no taming the swamp. And so, all I see AOC and certainly Mad Maxine Waters and Durbin and Schumer and Pelosi, these are swamp monsters that, they have multiple homes that could feed, and they could feed a lot of homeless people in those homes. But
they don't even want Laura hanging out there.
Yeah, there are walls everywhere around those homes, but we can't have a wall, for remember, $7 trillion a year is a boatload of money. I mean, that is close to $600 billion a month. That is $20 billion a day. Trump wants $5 billion for the wall.
That's $1 billion almost an hour.
It's ridiculous.
Where does all that money go?
Well, a lot of it's Social Security payments, but defense is $718 or whatever it is per year, and you just add it up. There's salaries and pensions and contracts, and interest is now a lot because Barack Obama and George Bush piled a monstrous debt on future generations that needs to be paid. We need to pay interest on that. We need to repay the principal. So it's not like this team in Washington deserves the right to say, we are the top of the class. We're the best of breed. We know what we're doing because we've been failing consistently for 31 years. That's why give us another $1 trillion.
What about the speculation? A lot of people have been thinking that Trump is keeping the government shut down to trigger some sort of furlough of unnecessary people.
We'll be talking about that. Yeah. Thomas Lifson wrote a great piece about that. But we want to bring it back to the Clinton Foundation a little bit and try to hammer home. I can imagine that some people in the IRS are on furlough now, and maybe no one's really focusing on the Clinton Foundation right now because any excuse not to focus on the foundation that's going to bring down the swamp is an excuse that people will take in Washington, D.C. But we have today, we're going to go through in rather stunning and crisp detail facts that should help the people who've been following along with us now for many months, years almost, or years actually. We're going to show you the crisp, thin case that could take down the Clinton Foundation in less than 24 hours. And we're going to wonder together.
You mean the show will occupy less than 24
hours? No, the show is definitely going to occupy less than 24 hours. Good. I'm certainly not wearing a yellow vest. And in addition, we're going to take you through just some new details, weaving them together so you get a tighter view of just how atrocious the record is of the public filings of Clinton Foundation. So what we need here, folks, I think Washington, D.C. understands that, Sean Hannity will wax eloquently, and I like Sean Hannity, and I like some of the people at Fox. I particularly like the people at One News Network and other places like that, One America News, rather. But all the fulminating, all the podcasting and all that doesn't mean anything if people aren't going to go out and call their congressman, call their senator, call their attorney general, put in requests as Larry Doyle and John Moynihan have done, as others could do.
Any news on that? What's happening?
Nothing new at the moment, nothing to report. But what we need here is for people in the crowd to start contacting other people and say, look, we're going to get a request coming out of, as sure as we're sitting here right now, California is going to have fiscal problems, right? New York is going to have fiscal problems. State after state is going to have fiscal problems. And they're going to come forward, as soon as governor and that mayor is going to say, we need more money from Washington, D.C. We need to raise taxes stratospherically. We need to tax the wealthy. We need this and we need that. No, you don't. You've got a massive fraud here in the Clinton Foundation. You've got $5 trillion in assets sitting in private foundations and public charities that could be taxed and should be taxed with penalties and interest to redress this fraud. Its full contours, not simply the Clinton Foundation, but the Global Fund and the many entities around the Clinton Foundation, UNITAID, UNAIDS, many of them, that have been leaching out tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayer either funding or obligations that need to go back to the taxpayer. So before we start reaching and attacking individuals, rich or whatever, and saying that they need to pay more taxes, let's use the Clinton Foundation specifics, violations, and failures, evident failures of the Department of Justice and the IRS to do their freaking jobs and discipline this thing. Let's use this as a way to drain the swamp, and let's use this as a way to encourage Donald Trump to push hard on this. As you mentioned Barr, there's some back and forth on Barr as to whether he made positive or negative comments suggesting that there is a real there with the Clinton Foundation. Not so much with collusion, but in the legal terminology, there's a predicate. There's foundation to believe that serious crimes were committed here with this Clinton Foundation and are ongoing.
I thought he said he doesn't subscribe to that hashtag lock her up.
It's different. It's different. What he was saying there, I think, is that you shouldn't, around political campaigns, get into the practice of saying, you know, the victor in a political campaign is going to find some flimsy pretext to incarcerate somebody over an election commission crime. This is different. I believe what he said, in clarifying, I don't know, was that no, if you look just at, for example, Barack Obama's failures to complete his Federal Election Commission report, he just got fined, his campaign got fined several $100,000. No one went to jail over that. In contrast, what we've got going on now is Manafort's in jail, right? And I would draw a big distinction here between an actual criminal conspiracy masterminded by, in theory, legal people, legal eagles, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and maybe, you know, Diarrhea Queen, Chelsea.
I think HW.
And HW and W, but in the Clinton Foundation especially, I think...
W couldn't mastermind, you know, programming a Netflix subscription.
I'm not sure I could do that either. But anyway, there's a big difference between operating a criminal fraud enterprise, a racketeering corrupt enterprise, over 22 years, and running afoul of filing requirements on campaign forms. So I'm not exactly sure what Barr was saying, and recognize he was trying to placate that lying idiot Blumenthal, you know, the person who claimed that he served in Vietnam when he may have served Vietnamese food somewhere, but he never served in Vietnam anyway.
He's working at a faux restaurant.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, Charles, you know, the thing that stuck in my mind the most, which I knew nothing about this, I was just watching that, you know, confirmation hearing, and Barr himself said he was an outside advisor to the CIA, which is lawyers speak for, I was a CIA asset, which is
not good.
Spook speak for, I work for the CIA. So, I don't know, he's an HW man. He was somehow connected to Operation 40 and definitely connected to the pardons related to Iran-Contra. In my view, what we are seeing in William Barr is the swampiest of swamp creatures. He is as deep as the deep state goes. They might as well have nominated Felix Rodriguez to be the Attorney General, because I think we're in a lot of trouble if that guy gets confirmed.
Well, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. Let's, if we can, though, Jason, let's keep it focused on the Clinton Foundation for now, because I really want to make sure we go into depth on this.
Ready to go.
If we go to the next slide, I see you're up to now 79,300 subscribers or something like that.
Yeah.
So you're spitting distance from 80 on the main channel, and you're above 10, I think, on Crowdsource too. So you're now 90.
I know. It's, but yet, you know, there still seems to be some suppression going on, but, you know, we soldier on.
Exactly. And so this, just for your new subscribers and people who may have forgotten this, we just want to remind people that this is different than standard podcasting, and it's certainly different than the mainstream media. We're not sponsored by MyPillow, and we're not sponsored by Depends Diapers or any commercial enterprise. This is a forum where we're trying to give you, the viewership, tools, free of charge, to go look at the facts for yourselves. Form your own conclusions, do your own analysis. We point you in the direction. If we have made mistakes, or if we haven't seen the full import of what we're trying to get across the line to you, please let us know with constructive suggestions. We both like to get them at our respective Twitter accounts. You can also contact me on my website. But this is a different format, purposefully so. You won't see this probably see this on network television. Perhaps someday people will say, maybe we should do this on cable TV. But the notion that you're going to get across and explain a fraud as gigantic as this, as complex as this, in between 6-minute segments where 2 to 3 to 4 people are back and forthing it in 20 to 30 seconds sound bites, it's just not, that's never going to work. And while it may be true that most people have a short attention span, I get repeated emails, I think sincere emails from people saying, and I'm joking now, you know, I've watched every one of your podcasts and I really appreciate it, thanks for doing it. You know, I'm sorry to take so much time out of your lives, but I think to really try to get a wide adherence to the need to expose, convict, and incarcerate people responsible for carrying out these epic frauds around the world, you have to give it just this kind of justice. You have to go as deep as we've going into it, as many different ways as we've been going into it, as repeatedly, consistently as we've been doing it, in part because day after day that no one on the other side comes back and says, call off the dogs. No one has asked us to stop. No one on the Clinton side has said you're wrong with any kind of credibility. I mean, I don't think anybody said we're actually even wrong.
Sorry, Charles, you said something about attention span?
Where am I?
What?
Are you going to bring up this yellow vest again?
What yellow vest?
But anyway, so we do try to provide you a whole bunch of information. Jason has also mocked up this playlist, which is getting to be lengthy.
Oh, well, it went over there. The playlist is a very useful resource for people who are perhaps new. We've got on the main Jason Goodman YouTube channel, we've got the Sunday with Charles playlist that consolidates all of the Sunday with Charles episodes as well as all of the Charles Ortel is Closing In episodes. And this is our 135th show, Charles.
Right, and I think on average, the shows probably come in at around 2 hours or so. Thank you for your patience in watching, and thanks to many people who do wait for the show and circulate it, and again, provide comments right now as we're on air.
Yeah.
Really appreciate all that.
Circulating it is important. That's one of the best things that people can do, is to send it to friends who maybe aren't aware of some of these facts, open people's eyes. And certainly if you let them know about patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, that's very helpful as well.
Good. So without any further ado, we'll fly through some of the recent articles, which I think are noteworthy. If we go to the first one here, it came out on Fox, I think, either yesterday or earlier today.
Brazen plot.
Yeah, this is a couple days ago. This is a really worthwhile article by two friends. I am in touch with both of them.
Who is this?
Joe DeGenova and...
That's Joe DeGenova?
That's Peter King. But if you go up to the top, you'll see it says by Victoria Tensing and Joe DeGenova, husband and wife. Defense attorneys who've done excellent work, and both of them have a lot of experience, and they're just hammering home the obvious, that this in no way should government resources have been tasked with, on the one hand, mounting a counterintelligence investigation against the Republican nominee for president, while on the other hand, the Democratic nominee, while on the other hand, suppressing a real investigation, what should have been a real investigation, into the Democratic nominee, Hillary Clinton, for mishandling classified information. I mean, the contrast between those two approaches is indefensible. Forget the merits of either case. The contrast is absurd. On the one hand, you have a president, this genius Barack Obama, who he's never been president. I don't know how many times he was in the White House before he moved into the White House.
Maybe zero.
I've never been there, so I'm not. It's not like it was certainly more than I had been, but maybe it was 10.
I've never been in there either.
I don't want to go in there, and so it's too small. But maybe 10, maybe 20, right? This guy gets into the White House, and it must be overwhelming to go from being a 2-year senator, U.S. senator, with very few legislative accomplishments. Now you're the leader of the free world. To take that all in and get your job going and figure out, how to order food in the middle of the night if you want food.
That's got to be the easiest aspect of the job.
But the guy, so he's in there, and he gets an email from, Hill Dog at whatever her fake address is, and he doesn't think that, no one around him stops to think, hey, Hillary, you're not Secretary of State. Maybe you shouldn't be sending emails with classified information to me on my fake email address, whatever his is, at Ameritech, I think. It's just the contrast between what the laws state, what happens to people who break the laws normally involving mishandling classified information, and how lightly Hillary Clinton got treated here, and then how aggressively Manafort and Trump and Corsi and others around Trump are being targeted by people with obvious conflicts of interest in Bob Mueller and Rat Rodenstein and Dopey James Comey. I mean, these people all are directly implicated, in my mind, in obstructing investigations, valid investigations into Clinton Foundation frauds that started as early as October 23rd, 1997, and continue to this day. Every single one of those people has a lot to lose. If there were a Joe DeGenova, Victoria Tensing, maybe backed up by research from us and other people like us, you had a serious investigation of the Clinton Foundation, all of these people would be in prison for the rest of their lives.
You know, Charles, one of the most obvious and indefensible sort of contrasts is we've got that lawyer, Natalia Veselnitskaya, who was hanging around. I mean, Lee Stranahan interviewed her. Why wouldn't Robert Mueller? She's now under criminal indictment for misrepresentations in a civil case in which she was defending a company that is Russian, but yet...
Well, how did she get into the country? I mean, how did Loretta Lynch authorize this person to come into the country and just happen to meet with Glenn Simpson before and after the Trump Tower meeting? And
it's so obvious.
And you're telling me that all Bill Clinton was talking about on the tarmac out there around this time or after this time was just grandchildren? I mean, I don't think Bill gets a daily report from, whether Charlotte can stand, Hillary Clinton reading, the wheels fell off the bus again, or, I lost a Scooby-Doo van in the middle of nowhere, or I don't know how to pay for Chipotle Mexican food. I mean, whatever children's book she's read. I mean,
speaking about the difficulties of ordering food at the White House, Charles, we got this, Trump had a whole McDonald's feast there, which I found odd. I thought you're not allowed to bring any food into the White House that's not cooked by the White House.
I haven't been in the White House, and
and
now you can add crappy food is another reason why I won't go to. Although I like all that food. I wouldn't eat 300 cheeseburgers.
Well, I was going to say you wouldn't need to poison the McDonald's food because it's already poisoned.
So this is really, and I don't, this Gateway pundit. I hate hitting links because it takes forever to open them up. But this is a long post. From today, look at this, 15.6 thousand shares on Facebook, to give you a sense of, that's a lot of shares. But giving specific examples of deviations in practice where either helping the Obama administration and Clinton or aggressively hurting the Trump people in contrast. And we count in this country, and one of the reasons, if the rest of the world were not as screwed up as it is, one of the reasons the United States, that securities in the United States trade where they trade in relation to foreign securities, is that we have a more than 2 centuries tradition of, in the main, operating the wheels of justice fairly. There have been long periods and long exceptions where the wheels of justice have ground inexorably against minority groups unfairly, be they women or ethnic minorities. But in the main, contrast that with the way in which people are treated across the rest of the planet. Our system of justice, in theory, has been fair. But this recent period, under Obama, under George W. Bush, Bush with the Patriot Act, Obama with this crazy initiatives, Fast and Furious, Benghazi, etc., we need to reset the dial here. And we need to prove to the American electorate, I think in this 2020 election and beyond, that justice does exist in the United States, and that when you go as far outside the frame as these powerful people went to cover their tracks and obstruct investigations into criminality, eventually the spring needs to snap back, and the Comeys and the Obamas and the Valerie Jarretts and the law firms and the accounting firms and the fixers and the donors, they all need to be brought to account. They need to be told, look, you broke the freaking law. You were in charge of the FBI. You were in charge of you had senior positions. You were President of the United States. You thought you were going to be the President of the United States. And thankfully, now you're not. Now, one thing I would just like to note to people have sent me some cheeky comments on Twitter, just I think trolls. It is an absolute fact that you can impeach somebody after they leave office. That is absolutely possible.
Well, why not just indict him if he's no longer president?
Because you want to be able to, you want to indict and convict him, but it's also nice to impeach and convict. Yeah. So that's a great article. Then there's this piece here, you were talking about Royce Lamberth, the judge in D.C., has finally, and Royce Lamberth is all over the map. People say, I'm sure Larry Klayman has points of view on Royce Lamberth.
He likes Royce Lamberth.
This story is 2.8 thousand shares in, since 255 today.
Wow. Now
this may have come out a bit earlier and been updated or something, but
I saw something about it on Judicial Watch.
Right. But what happens with these people is, judgments happen down in Washington, D.C., and then Susan Rice, the impervious, and Hillary Clinton, the oblivious, and various and other sundry people say, we don't care what this judge says. We're just not going to do it. What are you going to do about it? And then they get allies still resident in the State Department. Mind you, look at this Ben Rose guy. If you go into the WikiLeaks Podesta emails, you discover emails that this idiot, he was basically an idiot.
What's his role?
He was an important campaign operative, and he tried to get security clearance while in the transition period, and the Bush White House denied him a security clearance. Now, I'd like to know why that happened. I'd like to know, was the Bush administration going too far, or were there real, gnawing concerns about this idiot? And then how did this idiot end up being, I think, Deputy National Security Advisor in the Obama administration if he had been denied clearance?
He looks like he's 30.
He was delivering pizza, I think, before he became, he was a little...
For James Alefantis?
Well, I didn't bring that up. But his brother, until recently, was the president of CBS News.
Oh.
Nothing suspicious at all about that, So anyway, these people now, in theory, have to answer questions under oath, and it's past time that they do so.
It is well past time, Charles.
Well, I don't, who says that?
I don't know.
And then we have this story in here where people are saying, isn't it great that lowest learners, the groups that lowest learners IRS department targeted, the conservative groups, are getting some money back on
Oh, wow, that's kind of a big deal.
The story appeared on my birthday. How do you like that?
Happy birthday, Charles.
Yeah, hypothetically speaking. And my attitude towards all that is I don't think the conservative groups have gotten enough. $3.5 million is a pittance, of which the law firms will probably get a big slug of that.
Right.
I think these conservative groups deserve more like $25 billion.
Whoa. Well, aren't we going to pay that?
For what?
Taxpayers?
No, I think it should come out of, we should have restitution from the people who broke the law in the Clinton Foundation case.
Ah, yes, that's a good solution. I can't wait for that.
We're probably going to have to wait for that one. But anyway, this is a good story to take a quick gander at. And I think, moving on to just topics of the day quickly before we get into the meat on the Clinton Foundation, I think President Trump has the upper hand on this border wall. These stunts that the people who try to appear on MSNBC and CNN, which nobody's really watching anymore, and Donnie Deutsch can throw a temper tantrum on Morning Schmo. But the reality is we do have not a manufactured crisis. We have an actual crisis on our southern border. If we have one on our northern border, let's fix that one too. If we have those on our marine borders, fix that too. Just because we've decided for the moment we're going to go first on the southern border doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a comprehensive plan. But it's not like these blowhards, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer especially, can say, we don't have enough money. We're spending $7 trillion a year on government. We can't give you $5 billion for your wall. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Especially because in the past, many of these people who are now saying Trump can't have the wall are people who voted for the wall under Obama. Some voted for the wall under Bush. And so, it's just, people see through this.
I don't know if they do, though. So many people seem convinced by the nonsense. They even show clips of Barack Obama saying there's a crisis at the border, and then now they're like, oh, Trump is making it up.
Well, there are some people, and you do see them walking around New York, crossing, into oncoming traffic, babbling at the moon. Those people will never be convinced. But we have a problem. We need to fix it. One thing that is not enough in the news yet, which will be, you think the previous Kavanaugh fight was bad. If we hit this Zero Hedge piece on Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh, yeah.
Having just been through a tough period with my ex-wife.
Zero Pulse? What's the...
Well, yeah, the thing is, I mean, it is traumatic. It's tough for people to go through. Many people have been through worse than I've been through, and I don't wish this on her family, but I think the reality is that she's very seriously ill.
Yeah,
and
her career is over.
And, I doubt that she's giving full attention to the issues of the day, which are extremely important now, and she is 85 years old, and who knows how much time left she has. Maybe she should do a Justice Kennedy and resign to be with her family and, enjoy her final days. Whatever happens, there's going to be a confirmation hearing, and I think this time Trump and, I guess, Senate Judiciary Chair Lindsey Graham, they're just not going to take this crap, the Kavanaugh crap, anymore. They're probably going to say, look, there's two ways we're going to do this, okay? We're either going to bypass the committee hearing so that all of you people who've decided you're going to run for president won't have a chance on the committee to pretend like you're high-handing it against whoever they nominate. And I suspect they're going to nominate Amy Coney Barrett
to replace RBG.
Yeah, who is Amy is apparently a mother of 6 children, a devout Catholic, and very conservative. And it will be extremely tough for Spartacus et al. To whip up on a Catholic woman of faith with a distinguished record, who's been out there for a long time.
Certainly avoids the Me Too issue.
Well, and it's that issue, but one of the things that people say that Donald Trump isn't all that smart, I disagree with that. And he did put a list of potential nominees out there in 2015, I believe, and I think Amy was on the list. So the Democrats can say, we didn't have time to study this. They have a lot of money, a lot of time. I think there's a bruising fight going to happen. And in the end, I think Trump will prevail on his nominee in the Supreme Court, and that will snap the balance of the court back decisively to conservative judicial thinking. I'm not talking about socialists. I'm just talking about rule of law and adherence to the strict wording and intent of the founders in the Constitution. I think we're going to go away from I can invent whatever I want legal, in quotes, legal practices to let's go back to the original intent and spirit of the Constitution, and let's follow that spirit into the future.
So this is the list here of people, I guess, somewhere on WikiLeaks or Wikipedia. People can take a look at that. Now, Charles, something interesting just to point out about this RBG article. She's obviously not well, but the fact that this is canceled, 2 weeks in advance is obviously pretty serious. It's not like it's supposed to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, and we saw from prior pictures of her, and I'm not. My father is above the age of 85, and I've watched him for years now above that age, and you can do well above the age of 85. But my father has been retired for quite a while. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is not retired. There's a lot of pressure. She's got the illnesses. Yeah. And it doesn't look good, sadly. No. Then this is pretty funny, this Fox News story. I mean, people will know that this guy, he went and a bunch of people, and they put together, they submitted manifestly false journals. They took, for example, Mein Kampf, Hitler's book, and let's see this here. They published a section of Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf that had simply been rewritten with fashionable buzzwords, and it actually made it through the peer review, which is obvious gibberish. And again, as Bilyana was talking about on Sunday, and thank you, Bilyana, for your contributions, the peer review process is not rigorous. You're not paid for it.
Well, but as I pointed out, if you're an idiot, your peers are also idiots.
Well, but my understanding. I mean, I have an ex-father-in-law and mother-in-law who are actually highly regarded American historians and distinguished professors, retired professors, and when they peer review papers, they're tough.
Right.
And I was given to understand that to get something published as a book or a nonfiction book or in one of these scholarly journals that is run responsibly, it is in fact quite difficult. But here we're learning that there's large portions of what passes for academia that is a little bit more than, drivel and, going out to a hook, as you like to say, a hookah bar, or I would prefer a wine bar or just a regular bar, you go have a few.
I don't like hookah bars. We just saw that on Google.
All right, whatever. I'm just, any kind of old bar, and you have a few cocktails, and then you just, talk smack into a tape recorder and submit that to the Journal of American Social Inquiry or something like that.
Journal of American Drivel.
Right, and then next thing you know, you've got a credential in the Journal of American Drivel.
Charles, our viewers are speculating that RBG is dead, and they just don't want to announce that.
Could be. I mean, I'm all due respect to her family, and it's not a trivial exercise to go through that. But it's certainly, I guess that phrase did come in here. It's well past. Who put that in there? It made it through peer
I
review.
noticed that, but I wasn't going to say anything.
Then this was really funny. Did you ever seen David Webb before? This is
I
David.
don't think so.
I think he runs his radio show from Boston, and he got on this. He was being interviewed. Either he was interviewing, or he was being interviewed by a CNN person. You go a little bit further down the page. This person who couldn't see David Webb because it was a radio interview, and she hadn't done any homework on him. And so on the broadcast, she accused and wouldn't give in. Accused David Webb of
being racist?
No, of using his white privilege.
Oh.
And Webb, Webb went on and let her dig her grave.
Wow.
And then said, something like, "There's a pretty good reason I can't use my white privilege." And she said, "Why is that? I'm black." Like,
Oh boy.
I do before I go on the many interviews that
At least Google the guy.
Yeah, you always do that, right? I mean, and this just gives you a sense of. They're getting what's due to them, and this is a story. To put this in perspective, down at the bottom, you see the Zero Hedge views count. Keep going down a little bit. It's 230,000, which is a million less than the Larry Doyle and John Moynihan story. That was number 3 or 4, I think, of all-time stories in 2018, and it's about 50,000 less than our story from 2016. But this is a lot of people are looking at this. And this idea that you can attack somebody by just calling them something instead of getting into the substance of their argument is preposterous. I mean, it's what losers do. If you know you've lost on the substance of the argument, you just say, "You're wearing a yellow vest." And then I say, "I don't know, geez," and you keep bringing that up.
This woman is standing up for the rights of hot women everywhere.
I guess. A hot woman she is. But anyway. And I wasn't calling you a loser.
Who?
But, so, yeah, I see the law as an ass here. This is a National Review making some excellent points here. I'm not particularly fond of the National Review, but
It's got one of those names that sounds very official.
Well, I think it was founded by William Buckley, who I do like, actually. But
William F. Buckley.
Jr. And... But this is basically pointing out that under Obama and Clinton, a lot of people, and perhaps under Bush as well, a lot of judges who like to legislate from the bench, either right-leaning or left-leaning views, both are wrong, have infected our judiciary to the point that it really demands a cleanup. But I like to see a cleanup happen. I like to see judges exercise judicial review. I'd like to see legislators write legislation, balance budgets, reduce deficits, pay down debt, solve problems instead of just simply spending whatever you said per day.
Almost $1 billion.
A day, and complaining that they can't get anything done because there's a logjam and a lack of ability to compromise in Washington, D.C. I think we got to stop this baloney and get the business of America done.
Right.
So if we go to the final one here, this is an alarming story. I don't know, you don't have Alexa, do you?
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't let that Alexa stuff anywhere near my house. But here's the sun is, some would argue it's
giant globe in the center.
Well, some might say that, but others might say the sun is really down to the level. You got the National Enquirer here. You got the Sun slightly underneath it, and you got the New York Times in the sub-basement.
Oh, is it actually down? I mean, this is something that people could verify. So this is saying that Alexa has gone rogue, and now what? It's just ordering loads of Amazon products?
Yeah, it just in the UK, people have reported incidents as where they just went crazy, and
turning all the lights off.
Yeah, exactly. Ordering pizza, ordering 400. But the thing that I think before you accept a free gift of anything, you don't think you pay for Alexa. You get this gadget for nothing, right? You put it in your house.
It's got to be $100 or something, isn't it? Is it free?
I don't know, but you put this thing in your house, and who knows what it's really doing. And this whole idea of nobody gives you something valuable for free. Certainly no for-profit seeking operation does that. And I think, I believe that if the new Attorney General wants to prove that he's on the right track.
Yeah, it's $150.
Is it $150? Okay.
Oh no, sorry. Amazon Echo is the device. There's an old one that's 50 and a new one that's 150. And then Alexa, I guess, is the service.
Right. Well, but that you're going to let this gadget continually monitor what's going on inside your house, I don't like that at all. And I think there really needs to be. I'm not in the Mike Bloomberg camp of saying that you ought to, require drink less soda. But I am in the camp of saying, if you're going to ask people to enter into a lifelong exchange where you give up your valuable personal data, and it's very valuable forever. Under a contract that probably nobody actually reads, to a company that then won't exercise sufficient control over its sprawling workforce and operations, won't protect you against the rogue employee who might do something untoward with your data, won't protect you against perhaps the CEO and his team that decide, having said they're not going to monetize their data, Mark Zuckerberg, to go out and monetize your data.
He's the rogue employee.
Yeah, I mean, so... I think there are a lot of reasons to put on a yellow vest and stand up for your rights, not simply in France or Germany or Spain or Italy or the UK, but in the United States and Canada. And I hope we're going to start to see this now. I also hope with people back from vacation, we do have Martin Luther King Day on Monday rather.
Ooh.
And
should I show that?
You could show that.
That's bizarre. I just came
Is
up.
that Marcel Farceau?
It's Mark Zuckerberg with his mouth pasted over his. It's a very disturbing image.
That's right.
We're gonna go off of that, right?
All right, good. So the question should it be TikTok time again? And we're going to show you. By that I mean that we're ticking towards a real dissection of the Clinton Foundation. So, all right, for those of you in the IRS who've been wrestling with this fraud and can't seem to bring yourselves to do anything about it, this is to make your lives very simple in the Department of Justice. On the one hand, Gilbert Gottfried, we have the actual purposes of the parent foundation of the Clinton Foundation over here, the main Clinton Foundation, and it shows that you're only allowed to be a presidential archival depository housing the books and records of William J. Clinton, and that even is not written correctly. It should have been drafted to say to house presidential records created or received relating to the period January 20th, 1993 to January 20th, 2001. It shouldn't have said to hold whatever Bill Clinton managed to accumulate while he was president, because that's not a charitable purpose. Bill Clinton had at the end of his presidency one mansion in Washington, D.C. Shortly thereafter, he got, in Chappaqua, and then he got another one in Washington, D.C. It is not a charitable purpose to house the president's crap, somewhere. That's not a valid charitable purpose. On the other hand, the presidential records that are created during a presidency is a vast amount of information. Storing that at lesser expense than the government might do it because private donors create a facility, that's charitable. So this is not drafted properly and should have been rejected the way it was drafted. Should have been edited and amended, never has been. And also to carry out charitable, educational, and scientific. Notice, charitable, educational, and scientific purposes. So when you create the parent foundation that's supposed to control everything else, you can't go broader than charitable, educational, and scientific purposes, right? So this was lawfully perhaps incorporated on October 23, 1997, but in my judgment has been unlawfully operated ever since. right? And we could take people, and have taken people, through the long, tearful trail of transgressions. It goes on and on and on and on.
It's
and even,
joyful if you're a Clinton.
well, and even dopey James Comey should have been able to see these. Oh, no, he was in charge of investigating the Clinton Foundation along with Rosenstein from February 15th, at least there was an investigation open February 15th, 2001, through some undetermined time in 2005 when this fraud escalated and metastasized all over the places we're going to show. But Comey and Rosenstein and Mueller couldn't bring themselves to see it. So these are the purposes. They got a determination letter from the IRS on the 29th of January, 1998, saying you're approved back to October 23, 1997. So they had to file a tax return for the period 23 October through 31 December 1997, and they have never done that, okay? Placing them still in violation of the law. You can go all the way back, lawyers tell me, because this is an unsettled tax matter. You have not submitted a complete tax return, and I would argue, and lawyers confirm for me orally, that every single tax return that the Clintons have put in is incomplete.
So therefore, the statute of limitations has not even begun yet.
What dis? As AOC
Who
said.
dis? Right.
Who dis?
Well, because Larry Nichols was expressing his concern that they were trying to run out the statute of limitations, and I was not able to articulate what you've just done, but that hasn't run yet.
No, absolutely. Nor has the statute of limitations on the ongoing conspiracy. Plural. But now notice this, what we call New Chai, the Clinton Health Access Initiative, its charter, which was its articles of incorporation, which were filed on the 29th of September 2009, takes New Chai into charitable, now religious, educational, or scientific, and you can't do that.
But there's something to that, because Obama's
a
tricky thing about
well,
it.
The tricky thing may have been that for religious charities, and there are issues of what constitutes a religion. You know, I can't say that my religion is going out for a steak dinner and a shrimp cocktail and caviar or whatever every night with beautiful women flying around the world in a private jet. That's my religion.
You're an extremist.
Yeah, no, I'm a minimalist, only one.
You become a fundamental steakhouse.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's not so there are questions as what really is a religion. But it's black and white here, and I apologize to the other colors. It's black and white that you can't take a parent entity that can only do charitable, educational, and scientific, and it's actually certain specific charitable, certain educational, and certain science. You can't do that and say, hey, guess what, now I could do religious too. That's just a bright line violation, just that one drafting thing. And then you get into, we can nitpick forever, whether working with governments at all is a charitable thing, foreign governments. You've got to be very careful how you do that, and the Clintons, of course, were not careful. Increasing access to high-quality health care for people living in resource-poor sections of the world. So you're telling me that if somebody's living in, let's say, I don't know, North Dakota, and they can't afford to go a doctor visit, you know, because they're only making, let's say, $75,000, and I pay their doctor, that's not charitable. And there's a lot of
increasing access that could cover like road repairs.
Could cover anything. It's too broad, and it's not. You read this, and this is the kind of stuff that a consultant who had never been caught for doing anything wrong, thinking like Ira's Magaziner by chance, would draft this drivel, you know, and say, "I don't need lawyers. We're not going to waste time on money on lawyers. I know what I'm doing here. I'm saving the world. Just don't get in my way. I'm saving the world. I'm getting Bill out of another jam that he and Hillary and, you know, Chelsea have caught. And I'm going to draft this language, and I'm doing it out of the goodness of my heart. Don't ask me what I do with all this money I'm raising, because I'm not even going to tell you what I do with all of it. Hint, a lot of it's going to me, to my personal pocket, because I have mansions.
Are there pockets in the vest, Charles?
You keep bringing the vest up. You're going to have to see a doctor soon. I'm going to have to go get you to a head doctor. But anyway, this stuff, you read it, it does not, it is far outside the approved charter of the Clinton Foundation, and it's not, in my view, charitable. And nonetheless, this stuff is submitted, it is filed in Arkansas. Then on the 31st of December 2009, Anil Soni, who then went on, who had worked at McKinsey with the crooked Rajat criminal Gupta, directly with him, he's the CEO of the old operation called CHAI, same acronym, the CEO of this new thing. He then goes to work at the Gates Foundation, and after that, for a big publicly traded company, that's still involved with the Clinton Foundation, and he knowingly puts in a false and materially misleading, perjurious application for federal tax exemption on December 31st, 2009, which is approved on March 15th, 2010, just as Lois Lerner and Eric Holder and the people in justice and the IRS commence their assault against the Tea Party. Just as they do that, they say, you know, this piece of garbage is obviously not a charity, it's a flim-flam, international flim-flam society. Of course, we'll give them. You know, and to top it all off, in this application for new chai, Anil Soni and the trustees, specifically Bill Clinton is one of them, submit a false application saying this entity, which obviously is a successor to the old one, has no connection. No connection whatsoever, right? And this gets across the line. And once again, this is crucial, as we're going to show you in a second, this period 29 September through 31 December 2009, when Old Chai was massive, it was more than $10 million a month, okay? Wow. No finances for that. We did nothing. We got nothing. You know, there's nothing to show you. Just move along. And remember, the Clinton Foundation only had authority to operate in a portion inside the Presidential Park footprint in Little Rock, just in there, not out, you know, in the local Hooters, not at a strip club.
That's going to really reduce Bill Clinton's effectiveness.
I know, and certainly not down in Hot Springs at a presidential retreat that they bought using Clinton Foundation money illegally, I think in 2000. They could not stray from the Presidential Park. In straying from the Presidential Park, I believe they created legal liability against the bondholders who were sold bonds in 98 to buy that Presidential Park on the condition that the Presidential Park would house only a validly constituted library. I think they have exposure there. I think they have the exposure with the city of Little Rock. I think they have exposure with multiple donors. I think they have tax exposure. They certainly have exposure with lawyers for trustees should be furious. Lawyers for accounting firms should be furious. Lawyers for the insurance companies for those accounting firms, BKD in particular, but I'll pick on Price Waterhouse, PwC, I'll pick on Cohn Resnick, I'll pick on a lot of the firms. You know, by going down this track, they have blown up what should have been the good standing of the Clinton Foundation, and they have created, in my view, massive legal liability in Arkansas, in multiple states, at federal level, and internationally.
You've just come up with the name for Bill Clinton's strip club.
What's that? Exposure. Yeah. So if we go to the next slide, remember we brought this up before, but some of our new listeners may not, or viewers may not have seen this before. There's a statute, 18 U.S.C. 219, conflict of interest statute, okay? A criminal offense for a public official in the executive, legislative, or judicial branch to act as an agent of a foreign principal. Now, a foreign principal is defined not just as a foreign government, but it's a foreign political party, it's a foreign, it's a company controlled.
Corporation?
Yeah. So I believe...
So wait a minute, so that's only if you're in the government.
Right, so Hillary Clinton was in the government from the 3rd of January 2001 until February 1st, 2013. So, but she was certainly in the government all this time. Bill had been in the government, and we just take you through. These are just a few of the defects. Hillary is clearly bound by this statute from the 3rd of January 2001. Bill, by multiple books, Joe Conason is on a tweet storm these days, and I enjoy his tweets. He's obviously drinking a lot of Clinton Kool-Aid, and you know he's a close friend of the Clinton family. He's a gifted writer. Trying to sell you books, Joe. But he has written a book about the Clinton Foundation called Man of the World, which very clearly lays out vignettes that could only have gleaned through Conason's discussions with Bill Clinton, Doug Bannon, and others. It is crystal clear that no later than the 20th of January 2001, Bill Clinton, Doug Bannon, and others decided they were going to milk the post-presidency. They were going to milk the contacts that Bill had gotten as president. They had probably husbanded and wived those contacts, you know, in the old days, Rolodex, the email addresses, the cell phones, the
This
private...
is Bill Clinton Inc., what he's
Exactly.
talking about?
That they were, basically, they had decided that they would create this bill. And remember, January 20th, 2001, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton were technically bankrupt. I mean, they had book advances to come, they had speech payments to come, but you know, when you walk in and somebody says, you know, how much cash do you have and what are your debts? Their assets were less than their debts.
They say, do you want to buy Abraham Lincoln's armoire?
Right. So, you know, he's out there in Chappaqua, you know, he can't, there's the vignette in Man of the World that there's no food in the house in Chappaqua, they stumble into the local diner and they don't have any, he doesn't have any money, and anyway, yeah, it's just absurd. They make it seem like it's, you know, Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. on a road trip. But, but anyway, 6 days later, there's an earthquake in Gujarat, in India, and Bill Clinton, you know, and Rajat Gupta, both of whom are really sort of two stumbling drunks, and that's an insult to drunks because each of them had sort of been discredited. Bill by the Mark Rich pardon, Rajat by failures of the internet bubble and its impact on McKinsey. This fortuitous and sad, but fortuitous earthquake happens, and the two of them get together and say, Bill says, okay, I'll use my foundation to raise money.
Why do you say fortuitous?
Well, because they needed a way to, you know, to find money. And whenever natural disasters happen, sadly, and this is why Congress needs to do its job and why a special counsel needs to be appointed and why Bill Barr, if he gets confirmed, needs to kick some real ass here. Yeah. We need to have real insurance policies because we're going to have natural disasters for the rest of the time, and these are going to impact lives, and people will reach into their pockets in countries like the U.S. and elsewhere and say, oh, we really want to help these Indians or whatever it is, people in Louisiana, it doesn't matter where, because out of the goodness of most people's hearts, you know, when tragedy strikes, people will cough up $10 each or $20 each, which just doesn't sound like a lot, but when millions or tens of millions of people do it, or as happened in the case of Haiti, a lot of money goes towards a deserving cause, and you have scoundrels between the money and the victims. You know, those are not victimless crimes. Those are serious crimes where the people who steal money that's destined for charity, they need to go to prison and they need to face financial restitution. They need to be ruined financially. They need to be put in places where they can never again serve in positions of trust. And so the first time Bill started doing that outside the foundation was on the 26th of January 2001. Again, using the Clinton Foundation that was only supposed to operate in Little Rock, he began soliciting money in its name on behalf of this fund from New York without registering, without doing anything right.
Well, I wonder why they thought that they could do that. I guess.
New York.
Yeah.
Then 3 days later, somebody comes along and says, hey, I got another one for you, Bill. International AIDS Trust. Why don't you be the chairman of that? So he signs up for that thing, which doesn't legally exist. I mean, it was formed in Georgia. There's a record that they filed. There is a 990 for the thing, an annual report for 2001 that is available various ways, so don't try to make it disappear. We already have it. Bill's named in it. Bill Gates is the largest donor. And, you know, it's a joke, the International AIDS Trust in its early days.
So Bill Gates can't possibly be doing all this by accident. I mean, he's not a dummy, and even if he is, he's got enough money to hire people who aren't dummies. He's got to be gaining some benefit from this.
Well, as a guess, and I'm just guessing and speculating at this point, that Microsoft had been under a lot of pressure. Bill was then...
Antitrust stuff?
Right. There had been a settlement, I think, in the U.S., but there was pressures arising in Europe, and I'm sure that Bill Gates, guessing, saw in Bill Clinton a useful ally who could intercede with Tony Blair and others he was close to say, you know, I'm really trying to do the right thing. You know, give me a break here, throw me a bone.
How many people can we fit on that Jeffrey Epstein jet?
Right, exactly. What are you into? Anyway, he works on this International AIDS Trust, and then by the 15th of February 2001, we finally learned recently through the FBI vault file that a formal criminal investigation was opened into both Clintons for public corruption, for using the Clinton Foundation corruptly while Bill was president, while Hillary was senator. I mean, this was open on the 15th of February 2001, and when I met with those two FBI agents, I confirmed this. I didn't just let them ask me questions. I said, I want to ask you a few questions.
Wasn't Bill already out by February 2001?
Right.
Oh, but the corruption was while he was president.
And so I asked them, is the FBI vault file a thing? Is it a real FBI thing? They said, it's a thing. It's us. I said, okay.
Any word from those FBI guys?
No. They never followed up, though they said they would. And they, giving me proof of their business card and their title and none of that. So,
they didn't give you that.
They never gave me a business card. I asked for a business card.
How do we know that they're real FBI?
I don't.
Could be fake FBI.
I doubt it. That's a very serious crime to do that. I mean,
so is all this.
No, but it's really serious to impersonate an FBI agent. If they had done, I don't believe they did that. Although, when I checked the phone number that I had against the public registry, it didn't come back with that person's name. And the answer was that, these are cell phones that the person in our administrative office got. Maybe it's her name or something like that. But it seemed a little fishy to me. But that said, let's assume they're on the up and up for now. But they said that the FBI they confirmed the FBI does have procedures and does have a way of going back into the past and opening up the records and saying, why was this thing opened? Where's the entire file? This is what Barr should be doing the second he gets across the line. Where's the entire file on this investigation? Why did they focus on the big donors and ignore the issue of what I think is a real fraud here, an additional feature of the fraud, that you open the spigot to small donors and then you don't tell anybody that you got this gigantic flow of money from small donors. You say, we didn't get any small donors. People were afraid of the internet back then. We just only got these 3 donations in 1998. That's all we got, 3. That's it, 3. And the next year we got like 20. Go back over that file and see what's missing from the file, on whose authority were things taken out of the file. Is this, how does this compare to other charity fraud investigations? Why didn't they find the fraud? Why didn't they go and say, a charity bigger than a couple $100,000 is supposed to have an audit? There's no audit for this thing. 98, no audit. But no tax return in 97, no audit in 98, none in 99, none for 2000. The first one is for 2001.
Done by none other than?
Then, Nutso, BKD, yeah. Truman the Tiger, Falsman the Tiger. And we know from the Conason book that we have extensive vignettes from that book which ring true, that Bill Clinton and Ira Magaziner, neither of whom are formally officers or trustees of the Clinton Foundation, decide to fight HIV/AIDS internationally with no organization. Right, in the name of the Clinton Foundation, which is not allowed to do anything outside of a portion of Little Rock, a small portion of Little Rock. Then Nutso BKD issues their first fake audit, March 1st, 2002, in the name of BKD LLP, which did not legally exist then. And I really question how that document came together. I even question whether it was done at the time or whether it might have been done retroactively, and who in the Little Rock office, if that's where it was issued, authorized this thing, who checked to make sure the Little Rock office was licensed validly in the state of Arkansas, which I don't think it was. Then by August of 2002, we know that the Clintons get together with Magaziner and Rajat Gupta and McKinsey and Rambaxi to begin the process of defrauding as many governments as possible. They go and they say to this African government or some other government, we can get you cheap HIV/AIDS drugs. They don't tell them that the drugs are likely adulterated. They don't tell them that McKinsey's also working for Rambaxi. They don't tell them that Chelsea Clinton's working for McKinsey and maybe on this project. They don't tell them that allies of the Rajat Gupta and the Clinton are paying off expenses of the Clinton family and paying Bill Clinton personally.
That's crazy.
They don't say any of that. None of that, of course, is disclosed in any of the tax forms, which would have to be disclosed.
I can't understand why they wouldn't share that.
Yeah, exactly. and of course, BKD doesn't bother to ask if there's anything like that because they're in Little Rock. They're saying, we see here in the charter that you're not supposed to do anything outside Little Rock. So everything that you're telling me about all these press releases that the Clinton Foundation is doing all this work outside Little Rock, it's obviously a conspiracy theory by the Republicans. It's all made up stuff. I could hang my hat that, whoever then, Skip Rutherford and the very thin staff of the Clinton Foundation would just sign anything saying that, no, we don't have any operations other than Little Rock. They'd lie about all this. Or maybe Bill wouldn't tell them. Maybe Bill would say to Skip Rutherford, you can't come to New York, you're based in Little Rock. You have no need to know what we're doing here, you're just the CEO of the entity. Anyway, the first fake audit is issued March 1st, 2002. The second one is May 3rd, 2003. Again, this is for the entity name they use is not even the correct name. It's William J. Clinton Foundation, Inc., Presidential Foundation, which doesn't exist. By July of 2003, we have the email trail before and after July 2003, multiple email communications, multiple shared facility issues with the Harlem office, this time shared personnel, multiple Clinton Inc. issues, multiple fraud issues, frankly, that the Clintons get together with Magaziner, and again, this Rajat Gupta, Rambaxi, defrauding the government of Ireland to the tune here of over $100 million. Of course, none of those flows go through the Clinton Foundation. And then you get your, this should say third fake audit. I pasted it in too quickly. March 5th, 2004, again for a non-existent legal entity. By the 24th of March 2004, Bruce Lindsay, acting in some capacity, incorporates something called Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative, Inc., which was controlled by the Clinton Foundation notionally, but had no authority to exist. He did this on it with his own signature. You're not supposed to do something like this without three people. And again, it was ultra vires outside the authority of Lindsay and of the Presidential Foundation to operate this thing. But it began operating. It operated extensively. We have the paperwork. We have tons of paperwork on it. And by the 31st of December 2005, the Clintons, Lindsay, and BKD together illegally claim in multiple state and international and federal filings that they had merged this entity that didn't exist into the parent entity which didn't exist in compliance with laws, which is impossible. You can't take two non-existent fraudulent foundations and put them into a merged entity. It's the old chicken salad principle. You aware of that one?
Yeah, what is the chicken salad principle?
You can't take chicken shit and merge it with chicken shit and turn it into chicken salad. It doesn't work.
I was thinking of Five Easy Pieces where he wants toast.
Okay.
He tells him to hold the chicken salad between their knees.
So there is a long, torrid, horrible history here of the Clinton Foundation operating way outside its charter and lying about it, which would disqualify the Clinton Foundation from ever being able to get valid legal authority to fight HIV/AIDS internationally with Unitate and other donors in 2006, 7, 8, and 9. There's no disclosures in 2006 in the existing filings, giving no granular disclosures concerning what they were doing, but there are disclosures for 7, 8, and 9. If you go to the next page, before we go to the next page, before we get into the HIV/AIDS disclosures, I've talked to you about New York law and filings mistakes in New York law. These are outstanding, uncured defects in the filings in California, okay? Where for 2002, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, the dates that the filings were sent across state lines from Little Rock or New York to California are listed here below. So you can fit them into a timeline, which we'll be doing. And these annual reports that were submitted, and the forms indicate in California they were submitted using the mail, which is a crime, across state lines, a crime. They answered these just 5 questions. There are others that are wrong too, but we just picked 5. Were there any contracts, loans, or other financial transactions between the organization, the Clinton Foundation, with any entity in which any officer, director, or trustee thereof had financial interest? They say no, and the truth is there were, so that's false. During this period, was there any theft, embezzlement, diversion, or misuse of the organization's charitable property or funds? They say no. The correct answer is yes, so that's false. Ding, ding, ding. During this reporting period, were there non-program expenditures 50% of gross revenues? They say no. Correct answer is yes. Okay, we're going to show you that in a second specifically. During this period, did the organization receive any government funding and provide details? They say no. The answer is yes. False again. Did your organization have audited financial statements? Note that it says in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, not in accordance with whatever wacky ideas BKD and Andrew Kessel have about what constitutes, compliant financial statements. I mean, you don't go to the bar with Truman the Tiger and say, why don't we use accounting principles that are not allowed in the United States of America for this return? And Truman, you pull the string on the back of the stuffed animal, he says, great idea, that's great. That's not the way it works. And unfortunately for the people who signed these returns, their signatures are out there, the evidence is out there. If the IRS wanted to do the work, it would be a simple matter to tag them for years and years and years of false returns, materially false returns across state lines, that would gut your ability to actually issue an audit for any period from December 31st, 2009 forward, which, because all of the financial statements for this entity rest on the theory that the financial statements from December 31st, 2009 are accurate on that date, which they're of course not. So if they're not accurate on that date, every subsequent statement is false. And here, BKD, unless they have a big fire or a series of fires at their office, at their warehouse or whatever, and bleach bits.
The Mizzou game.
Yeah, the Mizzou game, whatever, got bleach bit is flying off the shelf, and people got sledgehammers and they're burning things and dropping nuclear weapons off this and that. And even with all of that, there's enough in the public domain, and not just in California, multiple other places, they've lied under oath materially across state lines, making it a federal crime, using the mail, making it a mail-related crime with serious penalties here that are not, there's no statute of limitation that's going to protect them here, in my view. And these states, New York and California and others, they're going to come crying out to us and say, we need money, right? And the correct answer to those states is F you. Go after these foundations, get your money that way. Don't raise our taxes. Go after this crooked Clinton Foundation. So if we go to the next page.
Charles, our viewers are telling us that you're moving Frosted Flakes.
Am I? All right, these are the numbers, 2007, 8, and 9, that the Clinton Foundation purposefully hides, strikes from their audited financials, their supposed combined financial statements that are non-compliant. These figures are excised from the versions of the Clinton Foundation audit that you'll see on the main Clinton Foundation, but they're available in New York, they're available in California, they're available in certain other states. And remember, with a straight face, these yahoos or yabahos or whatever you want to call them, sign a document, December 31st, 2009, in which the CEO and Bill Clinton as trustee and other very famous trustees sign a document that says this new thing that we're creating here is not a successor to any predecessor activity of any organization. Okay? So here are the hidden numbers put in one place for you to consider of they spent a total on the right-hand side from 7, 8, 9. They spent, if we go first to the bottom figure, you see this CHI program costs. These are directly allocable costs of CHI. $189 million was spent in those 3 years on supposed direct costs. Now, knowing these people who would lie about what time it was, let alone a financial statement, I challenge real accounts, forensic accounts, to go and prove to me that $188.6 million is the 3-year total for truly direct costs. Direct means, pharmaceuticals, let's say, or test kits, just third-party purchases that are directly related to authorized programs of this Clinton Health Access Initiative or whatever you want to call it. They claim they spent $188.6 million directly on that, on top of which they allocated a further $216.8 million, spending a total of $405 million to, quote, fight HIV/AIDS in 2007, 8, and 9. And the reason those years are in red at the top is because at the end of 2007, for all of 2008 and 2009, the Clinton HIV/AIDS Initiative had no authority in Massachusetts, where it was headquartered, to conduct any type of operations whatsoever.
They did have a Weber barbecue grill there.
Exactly. So what are some of these allocated costs? A firm that would spend $188.6 million on direct costs felt it was essential to spend $65.8 million on professional and consulting fees. $65.8 million is a heck of a lot of money, period, full stop. But to spend that on consulting fees is absurd.
Yeah.
Now, how much of that was spent on McKinsey? How much
Sidney
of that?
Blumenthal.
Well, Blumenthal, and how much was spent on Ira Magaziner's firm? There are no details of this. A further almost $20 million was spent on travel.
That's crazy.
$8 million was spent on occupancy, but you didn't need to do that. You could have just jammed these people into the Little Rock facility where there's extra space for free. They spent $8 million on occupancy. We don't know. And then I love this when somebody gives me a financial statement and the largest single grouping is other. It's like ding dong. You can't do that to me. You can't say that 38% of the costs are just other. I mean, maybe you do that when you're doing Hollywood accounting or something.
Well, it's
theater
like cleaning
accounting.
up your room by shoving everything in the
That's
closet.
Right. It's just, it'll drive you to wearing a yellow vest.
What
To do
yellow
that kind of stuff. I don't know. Anyway, so you look at this and you say, obviously, they didn't want this to be on the main Clinton Foundation website, so they removed the schedule that allows you to get these numbers. I didn't make these numbers up. I took them off the New York State schedules that are missing, purposefully missing, to this day, from the Clinton Foundation filings for 7, 8, 9 that are accessible through their main link. So that, $405 million is a lot of money for anybody. If you're a billionaire, it's a lot of money. But then let's look. This is what they claim they spent on chai. Then they have something they call the foundation. Now, the foundation includes the illegal Clinton Global Initiative, includes the illegal Alliance for a Healthier Generation that we've talked about, it includes the illegal operations in Haiti, it includes many other illegal things. But they claim that they spent on direct foundation programs a total of $9.8 million, but on direct chai programs they spent $188 million. And nobody noticed that? When you're putting in this 1023 for Clinton Health Access Initiative and you say, we're not a successor to any other organization, there's nothing to see here. There's no yellow vest. There's no chai yellow vest over here, 405 million, or whatever this is, 188 million. Nah, don't look at that, because we are only spending 9.8 million on direct costs for the Clinton Foundation. This other 188.6, we don't have to report about that. So far outside the charter, it's absurd. Okay, and then on total costs, the total cost of this chai in the period, 405 million. The total costs for the foundation, the reason it's 141 is the parties are expensive. Clinton Global Initiative, like 10 or 12 million a year. You got lots of more salaries and other crap to do. But, nonetheless, they're spending 2.86 times on chai total costs what they spend on total foundation costs. And the test is that you are not allowed to engage in activities that are, quote, more than insubstantial in related to your core operations, your authorized operations. The test, more than insubstantial, has been held to be crossed when a foundation spent more than $1,000 out of like several hundred thousand.
So 19 times 9 million?
Yeah, you're
probably
you're
substantial.
Busted. You're flat busted. Okay, at this point in time, we got, Mueller's running the FBI, Mueller's letting Uranium One go through, Mueller's, because the 2009 stuff gets finished by November 2010, Mueller's rounding up Anna Chapman and the Russian spies June 27, 2010, and then just say, hey, you can go home, man. Can't let you stay here. If you stay here, you'll tell us the whole truth of how close you got to Hillary Clinton and what you may have been doing with the Clinton Foundation. Can't let you do that. We've got to hooskow you out of the country. I mean, this is just such a smoking gun here. These figures are purposefully taken out. Check me later. Go look on the Clinton Foundation, punch into Google, Clinton Foundation Annual. And you go to the 2007, not for the annual report, but for the audited financial statements. Look at the BKD audit index, and you'll see that the pages I'm talking about are missing. But they weren't smart enough to take him out of the audit that went to New York State and to California and to Massachusetts and many other places. So we have the real numbers.
Was it that they weren't smart enough, or is there something else that stopped them from doing that?
I don't know. They figured they'd never get caught. So, it is obviously the case that they were engaged in a massive fraud that they needed to cover up, and that Obama should, remember, Obama's team were dumb enough that on December 12, 2008, they signed a memorandum of understanding with the Clinton Foundation accepting the notion that the Clinton Foundation was wonderful and that, one of its core strengths was this HIV/AIDS operation, which, was a massive fraud.
So there's apparently a memorandum of misunderstanding.
Exactly. Yeah. So if we go to the next page, we've talked about it, and this is done a slightly different way. Remember, we've got a document going in to the IRS saying, we are not, we want to create this Clinton Health Access Initiative. We are not a successor organization. We have no prior ties to anybody, the Clinton Foundation, major donors, nobody. I sent you that. I don't know if it's going to go up on the link, the Cour des Comptes report.
Oh.
We can maybe do it later.
Yeah.
And if you can do it later, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's up there before, so people have seen it before. But this is translated the name hopefully the numbers are correct, translated the names of the countries. This is information lifted from an official report of the French government that is in the public domain. That said, this is what the French government ascertained through its investigations. Unitaid sent to the Clinton Foundation, they say from 2006 to 2009. I don't believe anything money went in 2006. I think it's all 2007 and 2009. But of course, the Clinton Foundation never prepared any granular information about 2006, so nobody really knows. And by not doing that, the Clinton Foundation is gutting their own existence, because if you don't file a complete report, you're screwed. But anyway, this tells you country by country how much the French government and Unitaid believes was sent to the Clinton Foundation for the purposes not of overhead, not for consulting, not for high living, not for other, not for occupancy, but for drugs, principally drugs. That was the reason that Unitaid was formed. It was formed to put money behind organizations that have their overhead costs already financed by other people, and these were to go for direct pharmaceutical purposes. The countries that are shown in red are countries that are not listed on the Clinton Foundation 990s as being places where the Clinton Foundation had an office or a bank account in 2007, 8, or 9. You are not allowed to just take a helicopter and drop HIV/AIDS drugs out of the helicopter into Botswana at $11 million worth without having an office and or a bank account. $11 million is a boatload of money. To refresh people's memory, it is more than the $9.8 million of direct program costs of the Clinton Foundation during this entire period.
Well, I bet you it goes pretty far in Botswana as well.
Absolutely. It's a gigantic sum of money. They say they didn't do anything in Angola. Now, why is it suspicious? Okay, in Angola is an oil-rich, mineral-rich country where people around Frank Giustra, people around the Clinton Foundation would love to get government concessions out of Angola, out of all these different countries. But no formal organization. Angola, Benin, place I've been, Botswana, Burkina Faso, another place I've been. Wow. Botswana is a rich country. Okay, it shouldn't be getting anything from Unitaid, because Unitaid is supposed to give money not to the richer countries. Botswana is above average. The other country, Chad, is small money. Ghana is in better shape. I've been there. Guyana is not listed. And another thing that jumps around here is you have some drugs going for pediatric AIDS. Those are for young children, many below the age of sexual activity, certainly below the age of drug use. How did all these young children acquire HIV and AIDS? Where are the doctors around the Clinton Foundation? Where are the reports that said, the resources in a country like, let's pick Cameroon, are they there? Are there sufficient resources? This is a pretty big country. Do they have enough roads and hospitals?
And water to drink the pill.
Right, and are they really checking that these $2.3 million worth of pediatric drugs going to kids are helping the kids, or could they be killing the kids? And who's doing the after-action follow-up? And why are the percentages all over the map? Why in certain countries is it only like Angola only for kids? Why I don't think there are many countries where some countries it's only for second line. And second line drugs, just so people remember what those are a variety of different concoctions of drugs for people when the normal levels of strength don't work. They go to you and they say, well, we got to give you the malt liquor. We got to give you the supercharged drugs. And when you give second line drugs to somebody who maybe doesn't have HIV at all,
hurt them.
You're killing them. You're not hurting them. You're killing them. And so this is not something that should be done by an organization that doesn't exist, is not audited, has no authority to operate in Massachusetts, is not controlled.
Sophisticated medical staff.
You don't get to do this because you're AOC and you're a waitress, at Union Square. I mean, you want to volunteer.
Was it Union Square where she was?
Yeah, she was.
That
yes,
diner.
Yes, I think so.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not a qualification to run an operation like this.
But that closed a long time ago.
Okay. So she had to go to Congress, it's obvious. Anyway, so here you see, this is for 15 countries. We go to the next page. There are another 15 countries on this page. And go down a little bit so I can see the total. Thanks. You get some pretty big countries. You got Kenya's getting $36 million. Nigeria is getting 29 million. Mozambique, Larry Doyle's home country, is getting, it's getting 11 million. That's a lot of money in anywhere, but in these countries where people, some of them are living on $200 a year,
Yeah.
you know, you 11 million, 10 million, 36 million is a boat, 12 million to India. It's a lot of money. And you know, where are the systems to control all this? There's no consolidated financial statements. There's no, the guy dopey Andrew Kessel has no experience with tough consolidations, tough international operations. I think his job is just to sit there and look the other way. You know, I'll pay $200,000, just don't ask any questions, and when we get in trouble, it's all your fault. Does that work for you?
It's got to be more than 200.
I don't know. Maybe you can skim another 800 a year. But I mean, this is a high degree of complexity. And remember, this is an organization on December 31st, 2009, to the IRS, the lowest learners department, they say, this new thing, CHI, has no predecessor operations. We have no contracts, we have no offices, we have no relationships with Unitaid. Meanwhile, Unitaid, this is an official, lifted from an official government document. This is what the government of France believes Unitaid got or gave to the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative. And it continues on the next page.
Maureen Callahan says Unitaid is a spy organization. Do we know anything about that?
It may or may not be. I don't know about that, but it's possible. Could be used as a cover for spying. But it continues. Look here. Look at these other countries. You got Uganda getting $40 million, Tanzania 18 million, Zambia 42, and Zimbabwe 11. You add all this crap up, and you come up with Unitaid believing that they gave the Clinton Foundation $296 million, $297 million, principally for drugs, to purchase HIV/AIDS drugs. And then, Andrew Kessler, you probably should have checked this in the listing of expenses for the Clinton Foundation 990s, in this time when no predecessor operations were happening involving HIV and AIDS. They say that they spent on pharmaceutical purchases a total of $212 or $213 million on pharmaceuticals. So if Unitaid gave you $296 million for drugs, and you declare on your 990 that you only spent $213 million, there's $84 million of drugs, of Unitaid's money missing. Now, bear in mind, the pharmaceutical purchases by the Clinton Foundation in this period were not funded only by Unitaid. They were funded by the Bill Gates Foundation, they were funded by the Children's Investment Fund Foundation in the UK and the US, they were funded by many governments, including Australia, Norway, Canada, New Zealand, and many other governments. So the real diversion here is going to be well north of 100 million. And it is crystal clear that BKD, they sent their deaf, dumb, and blind team to try to audit this thing. I mean, this is an egregious, reckless record here of gross misconduct. That, you know, to look at the audit papers here, it is incumbent upon the licensing board in Arkansas, the Attorney General of Arkansas, whoever oversees the AICPA, which is the accounting thing, whoever oversees the bar in Arkansas, and I don't mean the alcohol or hookah bar, I mean the legal bar in Arkansas, whoever does that work has got to go after the trustees, go after the accounting firms, go after the professionals, go after the donors, and these wrongs need to be fully exposed and righted. This is a case where very obviously a lot of people got embroiled in this fraud, and a lot of people made a determination years back, this is such a mess, it implicates Republicans and Democrats, let's sweep it under the rug and throw anyone who brings up a problem into the swamp. You know, let's just do that. And no, that's not the way it's going to work. This is too big, too many people have been harmed, and we have to step up as a team here and put the pressure on the people who can fix this. So we go to the final page here. There's some people who like to say, well, Charles, you're just talking smack, there's nothing, it's probably technical errors.
Some people think you're taking too long to close in.
I
don't see them closing in at all.
I mean, I don't see their videos.
Right.
Where's their board presentation?
Right.
Anyway, so if we go into this New York State site for a second.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorites.
I know. And we pump in the CHI EIN, which is 2714144646. 646 and hit search.
Is it doing it?
Yep.
Oh yeah, this is always slow, this.
Yeah, it's New York.
It's good enough for government work.
Oh, did it maybe come down here?
No, there it is.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so you hit the Clinton Health Access Initiative. Okay, and then we hit the 2010 report when it comes up.
Yeah, it says waiting.
It'll come. Yes. And keep on going. It's
This?
yeah, that one. We'll find there's an accounting firm. Of all the accounting firms that you might pick, let's see who they picked. We go in a little bit.
Is this a Tiger affiliated accounting?
It is the tiger. It's the eye of the tiger. Okay, now just look here for a second at the very beginning of this thing. Does it say consolidated financial statements there? No, these are not compliant. These are not compliant. We keep going a little bit in here. The firm is BKD.
Yeah.
Okay, now you're supposed to, when you do an audit report like this, you're supposed to do it for the entire period, the beginning and the end of the year. The beginning of the year, end of the year would have been December 31st, 2009, and of the prior year, and the end of this year is December 31st, 2001. We get to this thing, it's signed August 31st, 2011, right before Simpson Thatcher jumps into the fray to try to save this mess. And you'll see, let's look at Praxity is involved, and we see here the balance sheet. They do a balance sheet for the end of the year, but not for the beginning of the year. Why did they not do it for the beginning of the year? Because if they did it for the beginning of the year, they'd have to admit it was a predecessor operation there on December 31st, 2009 or January 1st, 2010. There's no entity registered to do business in New York at the beginning of the year. Okay? Yet, if we go into this for a little bit, you'll see the history. What does it say about the history? In a second, you'll get to the footnotes. It says, the Clinton Health, established, first of all, it says this thing was established in 2002.
Really?
Right there. Established in 2002.
By President Clinton.
Yeah, by President Clinton, who had nothing to do with the Clinton Foundation. This is BKD. They'll do anything. Whatever you want, they'll do it. Okay? They work with governments and NGO partners. They've done this, and look at this. As of January 1st, 2010, the Clinton HIV/AIDS Initiative, not a predecessor, transferred all of its activities into CHI. Well, how did it do that? We go to Note 8.
Note 8?
Yeah, this is Note 1 here on long. Some notes are long, some up. Next. There we go. Related party transaction. Okay. The net assets of, they gave 14.633994 represents the net assets as of January 1st, 2010 of the Clinton HIV/AIDS Initiative of the William J. Clinton Foundation, Inc., okay? There was no such thing legally as a Clinton HIV/AIDS Initiative anywhere, and there was no such entity as the William J. Clinton Foundation, Inc. So these are accountants. These are, if you need a really stupid bunch of accountants, you pick the phone up and you call Truman and you say, listen, don't bring Eric Hansen, just bring your entire stuffed animal collection and a bunch of crayons, and we're just going to give you something to sign, and we'll give you a couple $100,000. Okay? We're going to write the whole thing up. You're not going to check anything. Everybody knows you don't check anything. You're a bunch of idiots. This is just so, and why is the IRS? It's not tough to do that. Maybe the IRS has a thing about not looking at publicly available information that's in the public domain, say in New York, California, Michigan, Massachusetts, and elsewhere. Maybe they just don't want to look at it.
But the question now is, we've got 2 years under President Trump. Why is the IRS still not doing it?
Well, because we only have months, several months, under this new IRS chief. Remember, the IRS is unionized under Obama, weaponized under Obama, and you only make a certain number of political appointments, and Trump only got his across the line, I think, in October.
Did
2018.
Did Obama do that to kind of like weld the door shut?
tried. I mean, I don't think it's so. I don't think Barack Obama was sitting there saying, you know, look, I work. I mean, I don't think there was a lot of the work thing going on. He was skeet shooting, he was windsurfing, he was, you know, doing whatever. I think there were
pictures of him eating ice cream.
A lot of ice cream and riding those stupid bikes and pretending he's playing golf when
he's not fat though.
Well, you know, that's nothing wrong with being fat.
There were videos of him going to the gym as well. So
that's
it's
true.
Like ice cream, gym.
Shooting baskets, whatever, you're playing golf maybe. But I think that the team around Obama that got into this mess and probably involved Clinton people and certainly involved the Podfather and others were saying, look, this stuff, we got to put all these incriminating information where the sun don't shine because we can't let this...
Sandy Berger's pants.
Yeah, we can't let this see the light of day, which is why we got to get Hillary Clinton elected. So anyway, when you go into the details of what they actually have filed, this isn't like you have to go into Sandy Berger's pants and try to find the stuff that may have been in there. This is in the public domain, IRS. It's not complicated, you know. And by the way, in New York State, supposedly you're investigating this. You're going to wait until 2,965 to get this done? I mean, come on, guys. You're all over the Trump Foundation for far lesser offenses. Yeah. This is a thing, Clinton Health Access Initiative, Inc., that lawfully should not exist. This is a thing that has defrauded donors around the world, the Gates Foundation, governments. It may be complicit in killing people by disseminating adulterated drugs. At this time in 2010, when this document was first drafted in 11, it was printed, Ranbaxy had not yet been punished, but it was under suspicion. And guess who was leading the charge on Ranbaxy? Rod Rosenstein. Okay? So, I mean, this is a mess. It is obvious that Mueller and Rosenstein and anybody connected to Comey or to them should have nothing to do with any kind of investigation into the Clinton Foundation. It is also therefore obvious when you try to think through the motives of why they would target Trump and his associates. Of course they want to target Trump to distract the public from the enormity of these crimes which have been carried out under their very noses while Mueller was head of the FBI from September 4th, 2001 to September 4th, 2013. All this was going down, okay? He's the very person who, had he done his job back then, if he was the straight arrow that people claim he is, he should have gotten this, and he didn't.
I mean, that's a big part of why I question Barr. He thinks that Mueller is a man of integrity. I mean, it's like,
yeah,
John Gotti,
yeah,
pretty nice guy.
He's a mooch.
Yeah.
So if we go, let's go back into the slide. I don't want to take, well, I'll just generally explain what I'm doing here because this is a lot of detail and I'm mindful of the time. I'm going to take a little bit of time on a few of these schedules to just show you what I'm talking about. But when a charity, a U.S. charity that has the ability to operate internationally, which the Clinton Foundation never had, but if you do have that ability, there's a whole lot of verbiage about how you got to control your foreign operations. Lawfully, you got to control them from a U.S. base. Now, kind of tough to control a headquarters, you know, something internationally from a headquarters in a state where the state has said, you can't operate in this state. Kind of guts. At a minimum, they should have said, you know what we're going to do is we'll transfer this Clinton Health Access Initiative. We'll actually run it from Arkansas, because at least maybe we could do it there. We've been kicked out of Massachusetts. Well, the problem is when you're kicked out of Massachusetts, you have to disclose that in every state. And of course, they couldn't do that because then they wouldn't be able to run their charity. So
I don't even think Laura Loomer has been kicked out of Massachusetts. She's been kicked out of almost everywhere.
But so then the question arises, okay, if you're a U.S. person, meaning in this case a nonprofit corporation, and you have more than a 10% equity interest or voting interest in a foreign entity, what paperwork do you have to file? You have to file two important forms that are not evident in the Clinton package of filings anywhere. One is called Form 5471, and one is called Form 926. Let's take a look at Form 5471. This is the vintage 2009 version of the form, so one that should have been filed by the parent Clinton Foundation.
This was a good year, a lot of rain.
Okay, see, this was revised in December 2009. Let's stop here for a second. Revised in December 2009. Remember that a lot of emails involving Lois Lerner and the IRS, she was in charge of the tax-exempt organizations department when these forms were revised, are missing. her emails are missing too. It's not just the State Department emails.
That's probably a coincidence.
Oh, yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, Lois Lerner.
I think I have emails from like 1998.
Sure, of course. I mean, well, so does any serious security service that wants to get these emails. They have them. They're kidding themselves. But anyway, they try to claim they don't have these emails because they went to the bother of revising this form, which tells you what you've got to do to, explain what you have by way of international operations. I don't know, if you hit the top, does it say how many pages this is? The instructions, 16 pages of instructions. We're not going to go through 16 pages, but you've just scrolled through it. There are many, many, many questions that have to be answered under penalties of perjury, truthfully and consistently, including, in essence, that for each we start. No, let's see. No, keep going. They're all in simple terms. You have to lay out on the form itself the full income statement for each foreign entity that you control. So if you have one in Nigeria, a form for Nigeria, a form for Botswana, a form for Kenya, a form for Tanzania, or none of that stuff. And you also, and if we go back into this, Form 926, you've got to, when you transfer property from the United States to these foreign subsidiaries, you've got to fill out Form 926, which of course there's no Form 926. So tell me, please, how between September 29th, 2009 and August 27th, 2011, when BKD, notorious BAD, put their 2010 audit together for Clinton Health Access Initiative, show me the record in the work papers of, did anybody in BKD travel anywhere to check anything about any of these foreign operations? Did anybody bother to wonder, how did you get the receivable from Unitate across the line to Clinton Health Access Initiative out of Clinton Foundation? How did you effect that transaction? Where are the notes? What date did you do it on? What currency was it in? Where are the board minutes on this? Do you need to get consents from Unitate for any of this? Where's the correspondence back and forth? And how many countries noticed this?
We should make a video of Truman the Tiger getting off the plane on the tarmac in Botswana.
Well, Jason, far be it for me to come up with ideas like that, but I like that one. Yeah, we can do it simple. We have like a flag, right? And you could have the pith helmet, and you could have whatever. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of other forms here that they did not
fill out.
That they did not fill out. And people, we have some expert accountants, many who are watching the show, they will know what I'm talking about. This should say Schedule, yeah, it does say Schedule I. Schedule N is a very important schedule. That's for liquidations. Let's hit that one, because liquidation is something, this one down here.
Schedule N?
N, yeah. But bottom line, when you fill out a form here, this is the kind of stuff you have to say. Part one is if you completely terminate. So they completely terminated the Clinton Health Access Initiative, the Clinton HIV/AIDS initiative was, I would argue, it was completely terminated, and it had substantial assets. You got to say, what did you get rid of? On what date did you get rid of it? What was the fair market value? How did you determine the fair market value? Who got the asset? What's the name and address of the recipient? And what type of entity is it? And they did none of this. They've never filled this form out for 2009. Okay? And this is if you completely liquidated. Part two is if you partially liquidated. So don't think you can get off the hook by saying, well, we didn't completely liquidate the foundation. We only gave an overwhelming majority of it away to ourselves, actually to Bill Clinton. Gave it to an entity that Bill Clinton and Ira Magaziner were allowed to control for the rest of their natural lives, which is debatable whether that passes muster as a public charity. Let's keep going down this form just a little bit more. This, just back here. This is sale, exchange, disposition, or other transfer of more than 25% of the organization's assets, okay? This does not say more than 25% of the organization's net assets. It says of its assets. And I believe they transferred substantially more than 25% of the organization's assets if you do a fair market valuation of all their assets and what was transferred. They did not fill this form out. That means the 2009 Clinton Foundation 990 is incorrect. It means all subsequent 990s are still incorrect. That means all audits are incorrect. That means there's substantial tax uncertainty, which means there would have to be a footnote in the financial statements. That means what the IRS should be doing, if they want to pay these agents and get these refund checks out there, they should be dropping a bomb on the Clinton Foundation and saying, we suspect that you were never anything more than a glorified slush fund, and here are the bills that we're going to now send out to Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, and good thing Chelsea doesn't care about money because she won't have any when we get done with this. You guys owe us $10 billion, unless you can prove to our satisfaction that you were a charity. And understand that if you now lie to us when you try to make that proof, you know, the very lying to FBI agents, lying to the IRS in a process like this is a serious matter. So you will compound your felonies if you try to lie to us now. So why don't you tell us what happened in a real book?
Slush puppy.
Slush puppy, that's right. So that's kind of what I had for today.
That's quite a thing, Charles. I mean, you know, that's not nothing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. People really want to know, you know, when stuff is going to happen. A lot of viewers definitely in favor of the yellow vest. What yellow vest?
I don't know what you're talking about. These viewers are seeing things. But hypothetically speaking, if you wanted to get one, these are easy to get in almost any
Home Depot or whatever.
Yeah, they're really easy to get. And you know, I hear they make you a little bit warmer when you wear them. But
that's what people are saying. But I think the Yellow Vest company is probably doing very well. And also, Charles, something I wanted to ask you earlier. I was looking here at GE, and it's up to almost 9. I thought it was going out of business.
Well, so what happens with GE is there's always, at this time of year, they have an earnings report on January 31st. There's always a lot of speculation. What's the new CEO going to say? In the beginning of the year, big investors have money they need to put to work. They're always looking for a new place to put it. You look at GE, the stock was 30, now it's 8 or 9. There's always going to be an argument. You know, one day GE was 60, now it's 9. You know, put 5,000 in it, you know, and forget about it. Maybe it'll go back to 30 or 60. So you get dumb money rushes into this thing. I would note that you have the Pacific Gas and Electric bankruptcy in California, which is very big. That's affecting the high yield market.
When did that happen?
Just now. It happened like on Monday.
Pete.
Yeah.
Wow. So
the significance of that is when you have a large bankruptcy for something that's thought to be safe, that infects the whole high yield market, and GE is close to becoming a high yield entity. And so the challenge of restructuring a GE, which is, you know, hardly a transparent entity, it sold many of the good things that it once had. You're left with the dreck, a lot of debt, a lot of contingent. You know, I would not take the job of trying to help GE. I don't think you can do it. It's like there's certain things that are worth doing. It's like the myth of Sisyphus pushing that rock back uphill to have it roll back down on you and up and down and up, and it's not for me.
Wow.
And I honestly think the clearer path for GE, I think GE's creditors have a more likely, in my mind, a more likely prospect of getting a high percentage of their securities returned to them one way or another in a bankruptcy than they do as a going concern. Because I don't think people are thinking clearly about GE's widespread operations in many different, you can't, just like Clinton Foundation, you can't say it's just what's going on in Little Rock. You know, with GE, it's all over the world. You know, while yes, you put the package together, you might be able to say in an amalgam, GE has more assets than liabilities in total, in theory, but the biggest asset that GE has on its books is intangible. One of the biggest assets, meaning goodwill. I mean, it's not, who knows what goodwill is really worth. They're saying it's worth something.
I think that and 275 gets you on the E train.
That's right, not even.
Isn't it 275?
Yeah, but you still would have the liability for GE.
Oh. Well, you know, the other thing, Charles, is that I haven't really had a chance to go full hog on how much I distrust William Barr and hope that he does not become the next Attorney General. But we've got this thing about him swinging the antitrust hammer at Facebook and Google. The only thing I antitrust is William Barr himself. But I'll believe this when I see it. I think he is in there to obstruct Trump. I think he is a George H.W. Bush man. I think he's a longtime CIA operative. I think when somebody tells you, oh yeah, I was an outside consultant to the CIA, that's like...
I mean, could we not find somebody, Mr. Trump, who is not tied to Bob Mueller? I mean, of all the people you were going to select, I mean, you had in Sessions, some argue that Sessions was a plant and a spy. He was never...
But you could see he was supporting Trump during the campaign when a lot of people weren't. So that was sort of like, all right.
All right, but you give him that shot, and then you get rid of him, and now...
You just put Whitaker there.
Yeah, exactly. Or just put somebody, or there got to be, of all the lawyers in America, and you don't, I think, have to be a lawyer to be the Attorney General, but of all the lawyers...
That's crazy.
I don't know, how can we do worse?
Exactly.
Right. I mean,
they should make Brian Vukadinovich the Attorney General.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably. I'd make Stewie the Attorney General.
Brian, come here. Well, Stewie would be a good choice. The other thing that we had was this company co-founded by Nancy Pelosi's son has been charged with fraud.
No, there's a shock. How could that ever happen? I mean, the spawn of Pelosi are involved in fraud? I'm shocked.
That's why he wasn't answering the door when Laura was over there the other day.
Oh, was he really there?
I don't know. I'm joking. I don't know. Obviously, they're not answering the door when Laura comes and knocks on the door. I don't think Nancy Pelosi would want to. Laura versus Nancy Pelosi, I don't think goes well for Nancy Pelosi.
No, it doesn't. Well, you know, it's reasonably cold, and I think it's shaping up. In theory, we could have a nice snow dump on as soon as Saturday night, Sunday.
Is that predicted?
Yeah, weathermen, they don't really know what's going on. But anyway, they're saying that there could be stuff, which means there are not as many of those, and I feel for them actually, these poor, mostly starry-eyed college kids or people who can't get jobs, who assault you now around Chelsea and the West Village and more expensive portions of every neighborhood in big cities. There typically are at least two of them. There's one here and one of the other, getting you coming and going.
What do you mean, trying to sell candy?
Not candy. They come with like vests that say, save the whales or global
they
warming.
Stand outside
right, of course.
Whole Foods.
Of course, yeah. There are many of them.
But they don't understand. When someone has headphones in, they don't want to talk to you.
Well, they don't want to talk, period, to these
people. I'm saying they try to talk to people who have the headphones.
I know. They say, do you like the planet? Do you like dogs? Do you want to fight cancer? Yeah, I do. That's why I'm not giving you money, because you're standing here in the street corner. Who knows how much of the money that you get actually goes to charity?
Right.
Do
you like the planet? No.
And so similarly with these, I hate it.
Shopping around for another.
I made a wrong turn. I start out of Mars and I can't get back. But no, with this Pelosi and these green projects, I mean, there are green projects that make sense, but
was this a green thing that was
a green fund, and there's the SEC saying it's a fraud. Now, there's a shock. Politicians connected to a fraudulent environmental fund. You mean like Al Gore they're going after? Not yet. But it's just like, I looked this up actually, there is a tradition. I haven't buttoned it down to the level of being able to cite in this culture specifically during this time period, but there are arguments that some ancient societies believe that when you take a picture of them, you're stealing their soul.
Yeah.
And I encountered that when I was in Africa in the 1970s, because I wanted to take pictures and I was told that or whatever. But I want to check it out. Make sure it's
How do they even know what that is?
Well, because they'd had a long history of people taking pictures, and I doubt you're stealing the person's soul, but to a certain extent, when you go over there and you take a picture of a starving African kid with smiley eyes and flies buzzing around and a bulging chest and this, a stomach or whatever, and you slap that in a color fundraising appeal, the grandfathers and grandmothers and little kids or whatever are going to send money your way, and it's a perfect way to steal money. If you're unscrupulous.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that should be an area where people on the right and the left can get together and say, enough of this bullshit. These kind of appeals, whether for disaster victims or, disadvantaged people around the world, or even in politics, the public sector unions.
Disadvantaged people in politics?
No, disadvantaged people asserting the need for a gigantic bureaucracy where you spend $1 billion a day, more than $1 billion a day, many more than $1 billion a day. It's absurd. We can't do this anymore.
No mas, Charles.
No mas. That yellow vest, I got to go get one.
It's a very handsome yellow vest, Charles. Well, I want to thank our viewers for joining us. Thank you for another great presentation, Charles. We'll be back on Sunday, of course, and I know that people are aware of this, but it's important that I mention that Crowdsource the Truth is viewer supported, so we do need your sponsorship. Please go to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and become a monthly sponsor. You're going to get access to great exclusive content. You know, this Monday, Charles, I've just added a new show, Hidden, what's it called? Unseen Libya, with Jimmy and Joanne Moriarty. And what they're doing is they're revealing videos that they took, that they traveled to locations within Libya, risking their own lives in cases, to speak to families, to speak to people whose sons had been killed in the war and who were depicted in these false flag videos that would claim to be somebody that they weren't. So it's amazing material that hasn't been seen elsewhere, and when they tried to put it on YouTube, their YouTube channel got shut down. So, you know, we're making this subscriber-only environment on patreon.com where hopefully we can have a little more flexibility. I know that people have been upset with Patreon shutting down Carl Benjamin, shutting down Milo Yiannopoulos. I am concerned about that and wanting to get to the bottom of it, but we'll be speaking to actually Lior Lesor tomorrow, who is an attorney who's been digging into this matter, and he's actually filed a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission. So perhaps that will lead to more answers. People can also sponsor the show by going to paypal.me/crowdsourcethetruth, and sponsors at $10 and higher are still getting that amazing, extremely popular Sunday with Charles screensaver, which includes some of the artwork and all that stuff. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Tomorrow I will have Lior, we're going to have Charlie Robinson, we're going to have the intelligence assessment with Kevin Shipp. So there's a lot of great stuff people can get on Patreon. And thanks for watching, everybody.